Captain America Civil War is now out in most cinemas across the world. So as always, let's get into the Easter eggs, references, cameos, and nods to various comics and movies that can be found within. Yeah, some of these will be more obvious than others, but we're going to try and go a little bit deeper here, in the hope that you'll walk away from this video just indifferent. I'd be happy if you just like, yeah, that was fine. That's the aim here. Also, spoilers, I should say that. Spoilers for Captain America Civil War, like you wouldn't believe. But believe it. Spoilers. So many. Let's start with the links to the story arc of the same name. And even though this isn't a direct adaptation, it still bears a lot of similarities, both visually and otherwise. To name a few, there's the death of Miriam Sharp's son, and that being the catalyst that pushes Tony Stark in favor of registration. In the movie, he's killed in the Sokovia incident from Age of Ultron. But in the comic, it's an explosion triggered by the New Warriors, which I guess is kind of similar to Scarlet Witch's mishap. And by mishap, I mean how she accidentally killed all those people. The speech at Peggy Carter's funeral said by Sharon Carter is also the same words Captain America says to Spider-Man. The Raft, which is a Marvel supervillain prison, doubles as the movie version of Prison 42 from the Civil War comic. Spider-Man removes Captain America's shield in battle, Iron Man analyzes Captain America's fight pattern to get the upper hand, and Steve Rogers knocks off Tony Stark's helmet in a very similar fashion and then just contemplates smashing his face in. These nods also extend to other comic books outside of Civil War, with Black Panther taking a swipe at Steve Rogers' shield, a look at some giant panther statues in Wakanda, and his royal bodyguards, the Dora Milaje. Might be Milaje. It's one of those words that you read it and you're like, how's that sound out loud? I don't know. The massive airport fight scene also takes place in Leipzig, which is where Baron Zemo is from, the comic book version. Everett Ross is introduced as an international liaison. 117 countries are said to back the Sokovia Accords, which is actually the number of the same issue that introduces Falcon and his bird Redwing, who we actually see in the movie. Except he's not like a telepathic eagle or, whatever he is. I don't know anything about birds. Vision, doing his best impersonation of an awkward, unsettling robot, clearly trying too hard to fit in, is seen playing chess, like he did in an early 70s comic, and his relationship with Scarlet Witch is hinted at multiple times. Most noticeably when he gets distracted and just shoots War Machine right out of the sky. That very serious moment is also kind of similar to how Bill Foster's killed in the Civil War comic. I don't know, might just be a coincidence. Multiple Winter Soldiers also appear, just like the comics where there's been a few, and his trigger words, 1917, could refer to his birth year. Freight car could be a nod to when he fell out of that train in the first Captain America film to his apparent death, and Homecoming has to be a hint towards the upcoming Spider-Man film, Spider-Man Homecoming. This movie was also filmed under the title Sputnik, which is also Bucky's shutdown word, and Vasily Karpov, who we see and is then promptly drowned, was originally the man who found and brainwashed Bucky. Tony Stark's armor is also very reminiscent of his bleeding edge suit. Hawkeye calls him a futurist, something he often refers to himself as, and Stan Lee makes an appearance as a delivery man, accidentally dubbing him Tony Stank. Captain America throwing his shield down at the end of the movie is similar to the time he gave up his title and became Nomad. And maybe we'll see Chris Evans in this ridiculous costume. I mean, look, if anyone could pull it off, he definitely could. He's got the chest for it. Nobody's doubting that.
Jeez.
Sorry, what are we doing? Okay, Ant-Man is seen riding on one of Hawkeye's arrows. That's some very iconic imagery there. And he also apparently took up golf in his retirement, which was also once a weapon of his choice in a What If storyline. Let's talk about Spider-Man though, whose suit is very reminiscent of John Romita's art. We also see a homemade costume, similar to what's seen in Ultimate Spider-Man. Subtle hints at his origin, as opposed to watching Uncle Ben get shot again, thank God. And he's also given a new Stark-designed suit, just like in the Civil War comic, but without the bells and whistles. He's also unmasked, which is also a massive plot point from that story.
You have a metal arm? That is awesome, dude.
Peter Parker's banter is also on point, very comic accurate. We see his logo projector thing in one of the after credits scenes, and him lifting up that walkway is like all the times he's lifted, like a big thing. He's always lifting a big thing, but it's like slightly too heavy. Know your bloody limits, mate.
This is really heavy.
So many hints towards the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which makes sense. This is a film in that series of films. Now, there's far too many to go through, and a lot of them are very obvious, such as mentions of the Hulk, or how Ant-Man beat up the Falcon in his movie. But there's also slightly more obscure ones, like the I could do this all day line.
I could do this all day. I can do this all day. I can do this all day.
a reference to Dot, a friend of Peggy Carter. A variation on her is actually seen in Agent Carter. Damien Portier appears, who originally played Thanos, this time as one of Crossbones' henchmen, and Ant-Man's disliking of Tony Stark is made very apparent, which has been elaborated on in some Ant-Man viral marketing.
And believe me, you're no Tony Stark. Thank God.
Finally, let's talk about some references towards other movies and properties. Marissa Tomei and Robert Downey Jr. share a flirtatious scene, and they also starred together in the 1994 classic romantic comedy, generic 90s romantic comedy that they don't make anymore unless it's like, ironically, sorry everybody, sincerity is dead. Bucky is also housed in a box labeled D23, the name of the official Disney fan club. Someone loses an arm, which was a massive Star Wars Easter egg from all the Phase 2 movies. And of course we get a nod to The Empire Strikes Back in that giant man takedown. Bucky is also referred to as Manchurian Candidate, a political story about brainwashing, and Jim Rash appears from Community in a role not dissimilar to the Dean that he plays in that show.
What's the rumpus?
We were debating how many times per year a man can drop in a study room in a dumb costume with irrelevant news.
The Russo brothers, of course, directed a lot of episodes of Community, and one of them, Joe, even appears in Civil War as murdered psychiatrist Leo Broussard, which might also be a nod to Steve Broussard, who has produced a number of Marvel films. The Russo brothers also directed a stack of Arrested Development episodes, and as a homage to this, the Bluth stair car can be very briefly seen in the airport sequence. Also, I should mention that this movie takes influence from Fargo, The Godfather, and Seven. When I first heard that, I was half expecting Gwyneth Paltrow's severed head to show up in a box again, but well, maybe next time, if we're lucky.
Oh, what's in the box?
Alright, that'll do it, but have I missed anything? Probably. If so, please feel free to leave that below, or even mention your favourite Easter egg or reference, or whatever. Also, if you are interested, this Monday on my podcast, The Weekly Planet, we're going super in-depth on Civil War, the good, the bad, the disappointing lack of a severed head in a box, all of it. That's linked below if you care. Alright, thanks for watching everyone, take care.